If everyone could please take your seats. Everyone, please.
Morning, thank you. Oh, please. Great to be back in Hialeah. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Please take a seat. It's great to be back in Hialeah, great to be back in South Florida. We have, I think as everybody knows, Stanley Cup finals that are underway, and you know, it's amazing how Florida has kind of become a hockey state. When I was growing up, we didn't have hockey. I didn't know anybody that ever played hockey. And now we have two of the best franchises in the NFL, Tampa and the Florida Panthers. And so with this Stanley Cup, I just want to let everybody know, I actually have a bet with the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith. So if the Oilers win, then I've got to send Florida rum up to Alberta. But if the Panthers win, then she's got to send some nice Canadian whiskey down to Florida. So we're going to do that. And I also said, you know what? I feel good about how the Cup is going to proceed. So if somehow the Oilers win, not only send the rum, I'll also throw in a key lime pie to boot. So that's what we'll do. Now, and then, not only that, which is exciting, of course, down here, but for our state, we have, after this weekend, two of our universities made it to the College Baseball World Series in Omaha, which is not easy to do. So we have both Florida State and University of Florida, both swept their super regional. I'll tell you what, I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch both game twos for Florida State versus UConn, and then yesterday Clemson, University of Florida were extra innings. Florida State, massive home runs. Florida did well. But, you know, yesterday in the game, you had the umpiring. I mean, one of the Clemson guys got thrown out. I think it was a big mistake. They threw the coaches out. And it's like, you know, maybe that wouldn't have made a difference in the outcome, but it's like there was 45 minutes of that game that was on a delay because they're doing replay to decide if they're going to throw somebody out of the game. It used to be if you throw someone out, then you get back going. So hopefully Omaha is not like where we have these big breaks where they're sitting there doing all this, because it really made the game drag on, and I don't think it was fair really to either Florida or Clemson yesterday. Nevertheless, we are, as of right now, the only state that has two teams in the College World Series. Now, NC State, who do they play? Georgia today. I was talking to some of you guys. So I think they play Georgia. If Georgia wins, they go. If NC State, they go. But North Carolina is in. So if NC State, they'll join Florida. But other than that, we may be the only team. And Florida State and Florida are in separate parts of the bracket, so conceivably they could meet for the national championship for college baseball, which would be really exciting for the state. And I know when we get to football season, I know the U's going to start winning again. I think that people have assured me of that, so I'm looking forward to seeing football glory return here to South Florida. And I think we have some good things to look forward to in other parts of the state as well. But that's not what exciting is. All that is. That's not why we're here. What we're here is even more exciting, talking about what we're going to be able to deliver in this year's budget to increase for many years in a row now teacher salaries throughout the state of Florida. And when we do that, it's not only for school teachers in school districts, it also applies to our public school teachers who are teaching in public charter schools. And I know that's something that's been very important down here in Miami-Dade County. So we're excited about that. But before I do get into exactly what we're going to be doing in the budget, it is important to just point out Florida, for 2 years in a row, has ranked #1 overall in education by U.S. News and World Report. And part of the reason, I think, is because when COVID hit, you had a decision to make. Are you going to approach this rationally? Are you going to put the interests of students first? Or are you going to follow the direction of very partisan school unions and try to just lock kids out of school and say tough luck for 6 months, 9 months, a year, year and a half? And in Florida, we said, you know what, kids need to be back in school. And so I think we had the highest percentage, 99 to 100% in-person education in 2020-21 school year. And yet some other states that had half the kids had no access to in-person education. So that was really important. We had a lot of opposition to that. I know the school union in Florida sued us because they wanted to lock kids out of school. I know there were demonstrations here in Miami with the school union here trying to say all the kids were going to die. That was wrong. What they were doing. That was politics and putting ideology and their own interests ahead of the interests of students. So happily, we won that battle. We made sure that kids were able to get an education. And I think the rest really is history, because had we done had the school unions won that fight, we would not be #1 in education in this country. There's just no way that would be the case. So that was really, really a focal point for us. Now, one of the things I noticed in that fight was, you had some of these entrenched interests that were pushing to say kids should not go to school, but most of the teachers themselves wanted the kids to be able to come back in class. I mean, I remember we went to a school that dealt with a lot of students that had unique abilities. They could not do it on Zoom. They needed to be in there working, and so a lot of these teachers did that. And just think about it. If you dedicate your life to this, do you want somebody to say you're non-essential? Because that's effectively what it is to say kids that need to be in school. No, most of the teachers understood that they needed to do. So that's part of the reason we've worked really hard to deliver the salary increases that we've been doing for the last many, many years. And so since 2019 to the present, we've had by far the biggest increase in teacher compensation that has ever happened in the history of the state of Florida. And that's something that the legislature has worked with us on, and we're very happy that that's the case. We've done a lot to be able to help teachers even apart from salary. We've extended the length of temporary teaching certificates from 3 to 5 years. We've also eliminated unnecessary bureaucratic requirements for certification. Some of these things can turn into like a guild where you kind of go through this just to go through it, but there's no actual reason for some of this stuff to be there. So we've tried to cut through that, pave the pathway for good people to be able to do good things in the classroom. And just think about it. If you can't hire somebody that retires from running like a Fortune 500 company to teach business at a high school because they don't have proper certification, something is wrong with that. And so we've worked hard to address that. We've also established, as part of our push to enhance focus on American civics and the Constitution, we enacted the Civics Literacy Excellence Initiative, which gives teachers $3,000 if they complete a first-of-its-kind civics training and they earn the newly created Civic Seal of Excellence endorsement to add to their teaching credentials. And so this is a course. We got some of the best scholars from around the country to offer instruction about what are the foundations of America? What are the ideas that went into our Constitution? It provides great emphasis on core things involving Western civilization, which you think everybody would know, but that's a lost art in many of our universities. I'd say the vast majority of our universities are not only they're not embracing the Western tradition, they're actively seeking to sabotage the Western tradition. Now in Florida, our state university system, we are embracing the classics. We're embracing the West. We're embracing these ideas of freedom. We're embracing these ideas that really make a difference and has made this country what it is. So we had 19,000 teachers go through that program. It's received incredible marks. And it's something that we really have to do. We've put an emphasis on civics. The legislature's worked with us. We can say, all students need to know this and all that. You got to take a course in high school, all this stuff. And we've done that. But if the teachers aren't well-versed in the basics, then it's not going to work. And the reality is, most universities you go to, even if you're seeking out this type of stuff, the options aren't great. There's every fad leftist cause will have a course assigned and even a major, but not necessarily this. So we've recognized that, and I think we've really filled the void in a really, really significant way. We've also understood that not everyone comes to the teaching profession traveling the same road. We now have 13 different pathways in Florida where individuals can work to become a teacher in our schools, one of which is tailor-made for military veterans who have honorably served our country. We value the unique experience that veterans bring, and we give qualified veterans a few extra years to earn their full certificate while getting additional classroom experience. And so far, we have almost 100 Florida veterans that have taken advantage of this pathway. When we established this pathway a couple years ago, there was the head of a school union, I think on the west coast of Florida, that said something to the effect of, you serve in Kabul, what does that have to do? How does that help kids, learn? I actually think it could help a lot kids to learn, because I think these are important experiences. I think that serving your country is a noble cause, and I think that what people develop in terms of leadership and in terms of character really matters, and all that is forged in these battlefields abroad. And you hope that people don't have to go do it, but when they do it, they are bringing back very valuable experience. Now, last year, we signed HB 1035, which established a Teacher's Bill of Rights here in the state of Florida. Now, one of the things that the bill did was said, with cell phones, students should not have cell phones in the classroom. They can check them at the front of the class, and actually some schools say no cell phones, period, but at a minimum, you sit in class and you learn, and you can't have everybody on their phones all the time. And so I remember when we did that, it's just kind of typical people like, they were trying to attack us. Now, the school districts that have really embraced this, they've never done better in terms of what's happened with the classroom experience. The students even admit it's better. The teachers admit it better, and the parents like it better. So that has been huge to make sure that you have order in the classroom. And think about it, what does it say? Who's going to want to go through education, preparing, trying to become a teacher, then you get in the classroom and everyone's just texting the whole time? What does that serve? So that was something that's really, really significant, and I'm glad that we did it, and I think other states have also followed suit. We've also empowered in that bill and in the Teacher's Bill of Rights, we've empowered teachers to preserve safety and order in their classrooms by creating a presumption in law that they will not be liable if they act to protect students. What happens is sometimes you have massive discipline problems, But then if the teacher does something to ensure discipline, then all of a sudden it's the teacher's fault and the disruptive student is somehow becomes a victim? No, that's not going to fly. Every student has a right to learn in a safe and orderly classroom, and every teacher has a right to provide instruction with a safe and orderly classroom, and we've helped deliver support for that. We've also given Florida teachers an avenue to report if they've been directed to break the law by their administrators or school board. So, for example, the Florida legislature can pass statutes, governor can sign and execute those statutes, and we have some not very many, but we have some around the state who think that the laws are basically recommendations and they can just simply do what they want to do. Well, that's not the way it works. And so if they're telling a teacher that the teacher should disregard state law, then the teacher is going to be able to report that, and we're going to be able to take corrective action. And if you're somebody who's an elected superintendent, if you're an elected member of a school board somewhere and you are doing that, affirmatively trying to sabotage state law, that is absolutely grounds for suspension from office under the governor's constitutional executive authority. And we've wielded that against prosecutors who have not been willing to enforce the law, and we absolutely will wield it if you have school officials who are disregarding the law. We've also established in that bill the Heroes in the Classroom bonus program. This provides a sign-on bonus to retired first responders and veterans who become full-time classroom teachers. We also established the teacher apprenticeship program as an alternative pathway for individuals to enter the teaching profession. This is just my instinct, but I bet you most people would agree. If you had a choice to have somebody be an apprentice to a teacher and learn in the classroom versus going to some school of education somewhere, what do you think is better hands-on experience to actually become a good teacher? Being the apprentice and being in that classroom is better, and our Teachers' Bill of Rights recognize that. And then finally, we established the Dual Enrollment Educator Scholarship Program to help high school teachers obtain a graduate degree or other credentials to provide dual enrollment coursework to high school students. We really believe that high school students should have opportunities to earn college credit. Now, part of that could be you do the Cambridge test, you do the advanced placement, you do international baccalaureate, but some of it, and this may even be the most effective, you just do dual enrollment. So you can do a high school here in Miami, and you can do Miami-Dade College, and you can earn credit right there. I think we have students that do a year or two worth of credit in high school, and then they go and are able to move forward. So, used to be students would want to do, kind of 4.5 years in college, get that extra football season in, but, we haven't won national championships very recently, which we used to all the time, in the 80s and 90s, but now you can get these credentials and or get the college credit. You can graduate college in like 2 years, a 4-year college in the state of Florida, if you take advantage of all this. So we want more teachers to be able to be instructors there. So that's a pretty robust Teachers' Bill of Rights, and we're very, very happy that we did that. We also signed SB 256, which ushered in a new era of accountability for highly partisan, wayward school unions here in Florida. And what this bill did was it said no automatic deductions in the paycheck. If you want to join the union here in Dade County, you can write a check and you can do that, but we as the state are not going to facilitate those deductions. Part of it is just provides maximum choice without coercion, but part of it's a recognition that these school unions have become ultra partisan. They've been trying to impose left-wing ideology, and the thing is, it's like, wait a minute, are you representing teachers to get better pay and benefits, or are you trying to push a political agenda? And unfortunately, so much of it has been about pushing a political agenda. So this bill really has provided huge amounts of accountability, and it's given a lifeline to so many people in the school systems who didn't feel represented by a union that's pursuing a political agenda. And make no mistake, We had school unions throughout the state that as we have provided more money for teacher salaries, what we've said is it's a categorical amount of money only can go to increasing teacher salaries. Because what happens is they say, oh, teachers need more money, you increase education spending, and then they spend it on bureaucracy and other things. So we said, and the legislature said, only to raise salaries. Well, what some of the school unions did, even though that money was available every year July 1st when the new budget takes effect, they would withhold the money to raise salaries for their own teachers they're supposed to represent and try to use that as leverage to get other concessions. And I'm just thinking to myself, the money's already been provided. You should have been working to get that money out the door and get it in the pockets of the people that you purport to represent. But it shows that they put their political agenda ahead of not only the students, which of course they do, but even the teachers that they purport to serve. So I know that there's a decertification battle here in Miami-Dade, and all I can say is that old union in Miami-Dade fought tooth and nail to keep kids locked out of school. They did not want kids in person during COVID, and they've worked really hard to push a political agenda, which is not what we need in our schools, and we about education, not indoctrination. So that is going to be unfolding in the next couple months, but I think that empowering the teachers to make that decision free of coercion was the right thing to do. And if you're not providing the services, why should someone give money out of their paycheck just to do that? And you don't need them to raise pay. We're raising pay in spite of those unions, not because of them, with what we've done in the Florida legislature. So keep that in mind. So you are going to have an election this summer with United Teachers of Dade, so they are going to be able to choose an alternative union or to not have any union at all as they want to, and that will happen very, very shortly. But make no mistake about it, we are putting our money where our mouth is in the state of Florida, not just investing in teachers, investing in universities, and making it so this is attainable for people. I would point out that our in-state tuition for our public universities is lower than just about any private K through 12 schools nowadays. It's about $6,300 a year for tuition. Where are you going to be able to beat that? And the good students who have the bright futures, they have no tuition or 75% off tuition depending on where you're at. So nobody has made it more affordable than the state of Florida, and that's because we've invested prudently. Now, in terms of teacher pay, so the budget, we're going through kind of the last stages of that. Some of these legislators that may have different projects. This is going to be probably the week that all comes to a head, and so we haven't made final decisions on every little line item in the budget, but we have approved, I would say, probably 90% of the budget at this point. And one of the things that we've approved are the major investments in education and the major investments in raising teacher pay. And part of what we've done is we've provided bonuses, we've provided increased money for salaries, but we've said, okay, how are we going to get the most bang out of the buck? And what we saw was when I took office, the average minimum salary throughout the state of Florida was just a shade under $40,000. And so we're like, all right, and this was even before Bidenflation. Like, how are people going to go through college and then want to go in? Not that money's everything, because people want to serve. No, you're not going to make as much as a teacher as you would if you were, a business executive. And I think people make that decision because they care about what they're doing. But we're like, we've got to get that average minimum salary up. So we said that we were going to get the average minimum salary up from just under $40,000 to over $47,000. That would make us #1 in the Southeast. And of course, places that have higher costs of living like Dade, they would be higher, Collier, other parts. And then we have rural areas that, well, $47,000 is probably twice as much in some of our rural areas as it would take you in Miami. That's just the reality because the costs are lower. So since 2020, we've invested over $3 billion in teacher pay initiatives. So we've not only accomplished that goal, but we now have the average minimum teacher salary is over $48,000. So that's up from about $39,000 5 years ago. And in many districts where the cost of living is higher, teachers can start out higher than that state average, because we understand there's a lot of difference between South Florida and maybe, say, North Central Florida. But that has been really significant movement in a positive direction with that. So I'm glad we were able to do that. And then we've also done other teacher increases. When COVID hit, we appreciated teachers being in the classroom, and so we did $1,000 bonuses for all public school, charter school teachers and principals in the entire state of Florida, which not many other states were doing that. Today, though, I'm able to announce that on top of everything we've already done, we will have this year in our teacher pay categorical $1.25 billion for teacher salary increases. This is an increase of close to $250 million in funding over the previous year's teacher categorical, and that brings our total investment in teacher pay increases to $4.6 billion since 2020. And that's where we want the money to go. This categorical can only be used to increase salaries for teachers. Now, I noticed the United Teachers of Dade president makes almost $300,000 in total compensation. That is one model. I don't want any of this money. I want it going to teachers. I don't want it going to the head of the teacher union. I want it to go to the teachers. So it's going to be a strong budget for education. This is the most we've ever done in Florida history in terms of a teacher categorical. We're proud that we're able to do that. You've also seen the major expansion and choice in this state. We've got 400,000 students in charter schools now. We've got 400,000 on private scholarship. And then we've got a lot of programs within school districts that give parents choice to send their kids in different schools across the district. And so that's all been part of a winning formula. We're proud to rank #1 in education. We're not going to take our foot off the gas pedal one bit. And with that, I'd like to introduce some of our speakers, and we will start with Miami's own Jeanette Nunez, our Lieutenant Governor.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor, for being here in the city of Hialeah to make this excellent announcement. We're all so excited to see so many great legislators and city and school board elected officials, and of course, our educational leaders that really have taken the time to invest in our children. And I want to thank Hialeah publicly for doing great work right here in the city of Hialeah. As you heard the governor tout all the list of accomplishments, I'm sure you're exhausted by listening to everything he's done. I think you all agree that Florida is indeed the education state. And we are the education state because we have a governor that has prioritized education, that has made sure to invest in our teachers, that has made sure to protect the rights of parents, something that is so important. Those of us that are parents that have school-age children, we know that we are in the best position to educate our children, and we don't want some bureaucrat, some ideologue, infecting our children with what the governor normally calls the woke mind virus. But we certainly want to make sure that we continue to prioritize excellence in education. And as you heard, we're #1 in education, #1 in school choice, #1 in higher ed, 8 years running. And that's, again, because of our partnership with the legislature, because of the governor's courage and conviction to stand strong when it was very difficult to do so. In fact, we made sure to eliminate DEI and to make sure that gender ideology wasn't being part of our curriculum. We made sure that our children were not subjected to pornographic material. The governor was The governor was maligned. He was accused of so many things, all of which turned out to be categorically false. But again, he stood strong, he took the bullets, and he's going to continue to do so because he knows that the future of our children is at stake. And unfortunately, in this county and in other counties throughout the state, education unions have been weaponized. They're using those union dues, those hard-earned teacher union dues, to push their political agenda, oftentimes with nothing that has to do with education. It's their political ideology. They want to continue to push their politics into the classroom, and that's why we're not going to stand for it. And it's easy to forget now because, of course, COVID is something of the past, but UTD and those unions throughout the state of Florida wanted to keep our kids out of the classroom. They wanted to ensure that kids could be behind a screen, not interacting, and for those of us, again, that are parents, we understood how damaging that was, and the effects was probably the most political blunder from the standpoint of COVID policy that we saw throughout the country. And I'd even go so far as saying that when our students and parents exercised their choice, they were bullied, they were pressured, they were told they would have to homeschool their children. And so these activists that double as union hacks, they've gotten in the way of teachers being able to receive that money. And what I'll tell you is the governor mentioned it. Right now you're seeing they're going through their process, and many teachers have opted to no longer participate in a union. And I've talked to many of them confidentially that tell me that they are being bullied, they're being pressured, they're being harassed. Union leadership swoops into their schools after they've made the choice to not be part of the union, and they're asking them why. And they're continuing to harass them. And when they say because the union doesn't represent me, they don't represent and align with my values, they continue to be pressured, and I think that's wrong. I think that's something that we need to look at and continue to address. But from my standpoint, the union is something that's long far ago, it's lost its purpose, it's lost its way, and we want to make sure that teachers keep that hard-earned money in their pockets. In fact, one of them jokingly said, I just gave myself a raise by not sending my dues to the teachers union. So in addition to the raises that we continue to invest in, make sure our teachers are well compensated, they can continue to give themselves their own raise by not sending their teacher dues to that UTD, which, as you heard, they make over $300,000. That's just one individual. If you count all the members in their UTD leadership, you would be floored by how much money is wasted. And I'll say that again, wasted on UTD leadership. So from my perspective, I think teachers can continue to fight the good fight, give themselves a raise, and stay far away from UTD. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Jeanette. And I got so carried away with the Stanley Cup and the College World Series that I didn't acknowledge everyone we have today. Of course, Lieutenant Governor, you're going to hear from Commissioner Manny Diaz here in 1 second. We do have the principal here at City of Hialeah Educational Academy, Carlos Alvarez. We have Madeline Roque, science teacher, City of Hialeah Educational Academy. We have Representative Alex Rizzo, Senator Ileana Garcia, Representative Tom Fabricio, Representative Alina Garcia, and our great mayor of Hialeah, Steve Bovo, as well as our representative from Miami Beach, Fabian Basabe. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and thanks all of your hard work for what you've done. Okay, we have Commissioner of Florida Department of Education, Manny Diaz.
Thank you, Governor, and it's so great to be home, to be here in Hialeah at this amazing school. I also want to thank Principal Carlos Alvarez for hosting us here and putting this all together. Thank you, and thank you for the work you do every day for our kids. It's an honor to be able to work with a leader that have put our students first and education and supporting Florida families first. In just the last 2 years, we have put parental rights back in education. We have removed dangerous and divisive rhetoric like critical race theory, diversity, equity, inclusion, and we have made tremendous investments, like you heard today, in teacher pay. I'm going to remind you, it's been said a couple times, but I like to brag on this, Governor, so to make sure we don't miss anything, Florida has made great strides in 2019. We're ranked #1 2 years in a row by U.S. News and World Report on overall education. But we're also ranked #1 in educational freedom 2 years in a row by the Heritage Foundation. And we're also ranked #1 in the Parent Power Index by the Center for Educational Reform. And it's been 8 years in a row that our higher education system, our colleges and our universities combined, have been ranked #1 by U.S. News and World Report. And I want to tell you, that doesn't happen by accident. It happens because we have an incredible leader determined to make education a priority, an incredible legislature that follows through and put forth investment and put our money where our mouth is. I want to thank the governor for calling for these record increases of now $1.25 billion in this year. But I want to make sure we don't miss the point that this is the first governor in Florida that has decided to put a dedicated fund that can only be used for teacher salaries. And that's, as you heard, is over $4 billion. Over $4 billion during this governor's term has been invested directly in teacher salaries. And like I said, no governor's have even been close to that. That's aside from the increases in the base student allocation and all the other funding that goes into our education. As a former teacher, I know how important it is to feel supported. And everything's not about money. You need to feel support. You heard all the policies that were driven by this governor to make sure that our teachers feel empowered in the classrooms, that they're empowered to remove cell phones, that they're empowered with a Bill of Rights, and that they feel valued. But the money always helps. And while the unions and the woke left ignores these accomplishments and purport skewed data as fact, Florida has risen to the top of education across the nation, as you heard. Right here in Miami-Dade, the average starting pay for teachers has gone to about $50,000 in this county right here. And our governor has further supported teachers and helped them have more money in their pockets, as you heard the story from the lieutenant governor, by signing House Bill 256 to protect teacher paychecks from politically driven unions. And they can go and join, they can pay out of their checkbook, they can have it withdrawn from their checkbook, but really we had no business in the government doing that function of collecting those dues for unions. That's their business, they need to do it on their own. And honestly, the union needs to do a better job and stop focusing their energy, although they're facing an existential crisis, they're focusing their energy on woke ideology, on protecting pornographic materials, on doing other things. And what they need to do is focus on making sure that these dollars that are appropriated, signed by the governor, get directly in the pocketbooks of teachers immediately. And so I want to laud and applaud our charter schools, because that budget goes into effect July 1, and principals like Principal Alvarez turn around and immediately put those dollars in the teachers' pocketbooks where they belong. All of that going on while this governor has continued to drive and pursue school choice. To give you some perspective, there's 739 charter schools in the state of Florida, educating more than 397,000 students. That would be if it was a school district, it would be the largest school district in the state of Florida. It would also be top 3 when it comes to size of school districts in the nation. So that should give you just an idea on charter schools alone. And while the unions want to defund these charter schools, 63% of our charter schools are either an A or a B. And the accountability lies not only in the parents, which I believe, and I know the governor believes, is the most important accountability, but remember, charter schools that get 2 Fs close. There is an ultimate accountability there with the parents and with the system, and we don't see that in the school systems, and that's why I think the unions need to get out of the way. They need to do a better job of getting these dollars into the pocketbooks of teachers and not waiting for money that was appropriated and effective in July to be in teachers' pocketbook in May. That's absolutely ridiculous and unacceptable. In Florida, we're continue to be the best in education, thanks to the leadership of our governor and the legislature. We look forward to that. I'm proud of the work our state has done so far in education and for our teachers, and I look forward to continuing that path, having a decisive leader like Governor DeSantis with bold ideas, willing to push the envelope to make sure education is at the forefront. We are in Hialeah, so I'll say a few words in Spanish for the benefit of the Spanish media. Le doy las gracias al gobernador por su liderazgo. Estamos anunciando hoy 1.25 billones de dólares o 1.2 mil millones de dólares adicionales para los maestros, pero tenemos que indicar que esto es un total de 4 billones, más de 4 billones de dólares o más de 4 mil millones de dólares que se ha dedicado a los salarios del maestro desde que el gobernador DeSantis está como gobernador. Y aquí en el estado de la Florida creemos en apoyar a nuestros maestros y también a nuestros padres y darle opciones escolares como esta misma opción aquí en Hialeah, Hialeah Educational Academy. El sindicato de maestros, desafortunadamente, en muchos casos está poniendo la atención a otras cosas, a temas sociales y no representando los maestros que están en nuestras aulas. Es importante que esos 4 billones de dólares entren inmediatamente en los bolsillos de los maestros y que no lo usen como un arma durante las negociaciones para otras cosas y temas como identidad de género, como CRT, teoría crítica de la raza y esos tipos de temas. Aquí estamos para educar, no indoctrinar, así que le doy muchas gracias al gobernador y le doy gracias por su liderazgo. Gracias.
I want to thank our governor for, like mentioned before, right, continuing to increase teacher salaries. I mean, $4 million, over $4 million under his leadership, $4 billion under his leadership is monumental. It is monumental. And having leaders too, like Commissioner Diaz here with us, and giving school leaders and schools the flexibility for not only teacher recruitment, but also teacher retention. It's really our responsibility to put the best highly qualified teachers in the classroom. Our biggest investment by far is the children that we serve in various communities across this great state. But it's crystal clear and evident that also the governor's vision, along with Commissioner Diaz, is that also part of that big investment is our teachers. Will the teachers that are here with us today please stand to be recognized? Thank you. You know, as an educator, from one educator to the other commissioner, we know what it takes to be what I call to be in the trenches, to be that first line of defense, to pushing academic growth, leading to academic proficiency. And we know that the ones that are in that front line are our teachers. And I'm humbled, but also proud to be in a state where teacher pay is recognized and our first line of defense is compensated as they merit to be compensated in this great state of Florida. I can assure you that unlike teacher unions, we will be working diligently beginning our fiscal year, July 1st, to make sure that when the 2024-2025 school year begins, those dollars are in the right pockets of where they belong, in the pockets of our teachers.